stuff I had mentioned prior was all stuff I ordered online, minus the battery. Um, yeah, yeah. Then the other big thing, which we found out when we were towing it back when the clutch went out, we flat towed it all the way back to the shop, which it was a little bit of a drive because we took all gravel, just trying to uh, keep it off the highway, which we drove on the highway a little bit and got kind of sketchy, so we took it back on gravel. Anyway, got it back to gravel. Well, or got it back on gravel. Got it back to the shop. I was smelling brakes occasionally. Now the truck was sitting there idle and running, whatever, because I wanted to have power steering while my dad was towing me with this pickup. And we got back to the shop, and I'm like, the brakes got hot on this truck. So while it was in the shop, I figured let's just put brakes. Let's just put brakes on it. So I ended up putting front calipers, hoses on the front, and as well as new pads. The pads that were on it were actually pretty good, but I figured they got hot. Let's just put new ones on there. I didn't want to deal with it. I did not turn the rotors because these trucks are kind of a pain. You got to take the whole hub assembly apart, and I just really didn't want to mess with that. I figured, you know what? They don't feel like they're warped, at least not to that point. That it was enough that I cared about. So anyway, ended up for front brake pads, ended up spending $41.99 for brake pads, just for fronts. I did not touch the rears. I looked at the rears. The rears were decent, so I'd never messed with them. Front brake hoses for left front and right front was around $42. I didn't get the receipt when I got. The thing is, when parts show up at work, I don't always get the receipt. My boss grabs it right away, so I don't always see what things cost. So I looked it up online, and they're approximately, we'll say, 42 to 46 bucks a side, depending on combinations and stuff. This truck does have ABS, so a kind of a unique one. It is actually a twin I-beam truck still, so kind of an early one to have ABS, which is kind of surprising. It has front and rear ABS. That 95 F-150 I have just has rear ABS. It does not have fronts. Anyway, for the front brake calipers, left front and right front, it was $133.98 for both. So kind of expensive, but it was a necessary thing. And grand total for all the parts I put into this truck, I paid $400 for this truck. I spent $1,542.03 on this truck. That's not including plates and insurance and things of that nature, and did not include gas, filling it up, whatever. That's all the parts I put into it. So I got a I would say pretty solid truck for, we'll say, $2,000. And try to buy a truck like this for $2,000. That's not happening. The only thing that now I'm thinking about it, the only thing I did not include, which I'm actually surprised I didn't include it, something I should mention. This truck has cruise control. The cruise control actually freaking worked on this truck when I got it. However, the switches were in very bad states of disrepair. So they were crumbling, falling apart. I ended up getting some used ones out of a different truck or Explorer. They aren't quite the same. And I might be able to demonstrate it for you if you can see it in the daylight. I'm not sure. Yeah, you can see it. See how they light up white? I have never seen one that's lit up that lights up white. That is weird. I've never seen that before. The plugins for these switches were a little bit different. The plug-in width was wider than what the original truck had. However, the pin layout was identical. So all I did was just push them in there, and they're in there. And if they quit working, oh well, it's not the end of the world. But really, they shouldn't go anywhere because the airbag and horn assembly, which works, by the way, that all works. And the other thing I hadn't mentioned, I hadn't mentioned, but this truck actually came with a Pioneer old school head unit in it, which I think is kind of neat. The fact that it still works. It wasn't working at first. I wiggled some stuff around, and all of a sudden it turned on, and it's been working. So, hey, win-win. I didn't have to buy a radio for it. Not that they're that expensive anymore. You can pick one up for 20, 30 bucks anymore for radio. This one is a CD player. I don't know if it works. I haven't tried it yet. But needless to say, I'm pretty excited about how this truck has turned out so far. Fingers crossed this isn't a wasted money. This isn't wasted money. With the truck with this many miles on it, anything goes. I hate to say it, but I hope this little guy hangs in there for me. The other thing I actually forgot to mention, when I first got the truck, the lady said the 4-wheel drive wasn't working. I had it fixed in about 10 minutes. I pulled it in the shop, had it up on the hoist when we were taking tires off of it. I pulled the shift motor off of it. It has a switch here on the dash, which you got 2-wheel drive, 4 high, 4 low. If you can see that or not, like I said, it's hard doing it on front camera, but it has a switch on the dash. It doesn't have a lever, which the lever would be better, but I don't know if these Aero Rangers had lever shifts anymore. I know the older ones did, but I'm not too familiar with the newer ones. I'm more familiar with those body style Rangers, to be perfectly honest. Anyway, I've never had a 90s Rangers. I had an '04 Ranger, which was 2-wheel drive, and that was a 5-speed as well. The 5-speeds are actually a pretty good unit in these trucks. And the fact that that truck has a 5-speed in it too, which is very similar type of transmission. Although this one, the gear ratio is a little bit different. I've noticed as I was driving. Anyway, so overall, this truck's been fairly decent. Now I haven't driven it too far. I'm still a little squeamish after the whole clutch going out on me. The one thing I will say, there are a few little annoyances. When I got this truck, uh, actually the speedometer, I'm going to shut the key off. Um, Everywhere from 50 to, we'll say 50 to 80, it wasn't lighting up on the dash. And I said the odometer and the tripometer aren't working, and they haven't worked in quite a while from what I was told by the lady. Anyway, I ended up pulling the gauge cluster out to see what the heck was going on. I thought a bulb was out, checked all the bulbs. Uh, didn't find, I found a couple and I replaced them, whatever. Anyway, the bulb that was at the top was not burnt out, and there was no power getting to it. So I started looking at the circuit board, and it looked like the circuit board got damaged. It's a printed circuit. So I got a little creative, kind of MacGyver-y almost. I ended up soldering wire traces to other parts of power on the printed circuit board where the board wasn't cracked or where the tracer wasn't cracked. I had to make sure it was for illumination, of course, and I ended up getting it to work. So now it has lights at night, which was nice because, when you're driving 65, 70 at night, you'd like to know how fast you're going rather than this black abyss that you're staring at before. You can see the other part of the gauge, but then, everybody's like, why don't you just use a flashlight or put some lights on it? I said, well, I don't want to tacky up this truck too much. Oh, the other thing I ran into when I got this truck, the defrost was the only thing that was working. And I couldn't quite figure out where that was coming or why it wasn't working right. And, you had your typical old vehicle, smelled like mice, wonderful. So I got some deodorizer stuff in here now, trying to get rid of it. It's working pretty good. It doesn't stink like mice in here anymore, at least not as bad. And it's enough that I can tolerate it, which I have a high tolerance for mice smell because I've owned a few that have not smelled good. This one was pretty okay. This was like grain truck status. I've had some that were straight up just disgusting. That 99 Cherokee that I had was the worst smelling vehicle I've ever been in. That one, whole family, a couple of families of mice have lived in there for quite a while. It was disgusting. You couldn't even put your head in the window. It was that bad. This one had a bit of an odor, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been. Anyway, I buy this stuff. Again, not affiliated with these people. I buy it at Walmart. You can find it online. Sorry, I'm trying to grab stuff off the floor. There's this product called Ozone. I like this stuff. It works pretty good. It smells decent. I store it on the floor in the truck. They do make some that go in the cup holders. I ran out of those, but this is a bigger one, so I figured shove it in here, give it a good spray. They also make a aerosol can version. On this truck, I just fogged the whole entire vent system with it. Just sprayed the crap out of it. It kind of reminds me of old like bazooka bubble gum. It had that unique kind of bubble gum sort of smell to it, or like double bubble, any of that, that old wax paper wrapped bubble gum. That's what it smelled like. It's okay in short doses, but it's actually probably bad for you because it's like inhaling like paint. So I don't know. It's not good for you. It even says on there it's an inhalation hazard. So try not to be around when you're make sure you're doing a well ventilated area. Blah 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 blah. Exit room after doing. Needless to say, I did it after work. I got out of the truck. I just fogged the crap out of it, let it sit overnight, and now it smells nice in here. Or it smells neutral. It doesn't have a it doesn't smell like mice anymore. You just say when you turn on, you do notice it when you turn on the heater and stuff. They must have got up into the vents a little bit, and I'm sure there's probably part of a nest somewhere, unfortunately, which you can't always get out, which sucks. But that's just the reality of owning used cars sometimes, especially ones that were on a farm or parked for a long time. Mice just love to find things, and my house is no exception. Anyway, I was able to figure out why it was stuck on defrost. I thought it was underneath the dash. That's where they typically have the issue. Tried. This has vacuum switching vents on it, so things were not working quite right. So I went around trying to trace where all the vacuum lines went. Tried to go under the hood. Well, I couldn't figure out where they went to the into the HVAC or slash heater box and through the firewall. I couldn't figure out where the wires or where the hoses went. Anyway, I started looking. Then I lifted the vehicle up. I saw one hose go that way and another one go the other way. Well, I followed the one that deadheaded at the firewall. So, well, that's the one that goes inside. It looks, you couldn't see where it went, but it went towards the firewall, so you couldn't really see it. So, and it was in such an area you couldn't get your hand up in there. You would have had to take the wheelhouse out. And I figured, you know what? If it's that big of a pain, I'll just live with defrost kind of thing. And I know that sounds lazy, but I wasn't willing to invest. The fender liners on this thing, the bolts are probably just going to snap off. You're not going to be able to get them out because it's pretty rusty under there. Anyway, I was able to find the other one. It went up into like the fender area towards the front of the vehicle. So I was like, I wonder where that one goes. Well, I traced it, and there's a vacuum canister that kind of sits on the passenger side frame rail. Well, the hose was unhooked. I'm like, well, hook the hose right back up. Defrost started working. I figured, you know what? Just for the hell of it, let's see if the air conditioner works. Hooked onto it. We have an AC machine at work, and it was one of those days. Didn't have a whole lot going on. Slow day at the shop. Hooked up the AC machine. It still had some pressure in it. Not much, granted, but it wasn't completely empty. So I'm like, ooh, there might be a chance. So, sucked down the system, charged it, went to pull off the high side valve. The high side valve was leaking. I'm like, well, that's probably part of the issue. So, sucked it back down or whatever, changed out the high side valve, charged it back up. Started the vehicle, nothing, wasn't working. I'm like, dang it. So I'm like, you know what? Let's go do the old bypass trick, which if you've messed with air conditioning, on the low side pressure switch, if you jumper it with a piece of wire or something, you can make it kick on. Well, it kicked on when I did that. I'm like, oh, okay, low side pressure switch must be bad. So called the parts store, said, hey, I'll order switch, blah, blah, blah. Plugged it back in. Stupid thing started working. So I'm like, must have been some corrosion on the plug-in. So I called them back, said, don't worry about it, I got to work. And air conditioning has been working. Now, granted, I know it's not the right time of year for it, but air conditioner will kick on when you're running defrost, things of that nature. Speaking of which, I'll turn that back on so it's ready to go come Monday, tomorrow. And anyway, I was just like, what? I'm like, it actually works. So, until it doesn't, I'm sure there's probably a leak. I'm sure it's original. Nothing, the compressor working, everything. I was surprised. The one thing I will gripe about this truck, it makes a screeching noise. And I don't know where it's coming from. You think it's a power steering noise, but I'm not entirely sure. It kind of comes and goes randomly. It sounds like metal on metal. Like, I kept thinking, I'm like, well, what happened was I was thinking, well, maybe it's something to do with the clutch. Because the input shaft off the transmission, the needle bearings failed. Your pilot bearing that goes into your flywheel, flywheel adapter, they have this like weird shim. It was kind of unique. I've never messed with one of these ones before. I'm used to the needle bearing thing going into the back of the crankshaft. This one goes into the flywheel. Kind of different. Anyway, the flywheel is unique on these. Anyway, I think the end of the input shaft was kind of boogered up from when the needle bearings had failed. It kind of chewed into it. So I'm wondering when I put the new bearing in there, it's screeching there, but it kind of comes and goes randomly. And you'll be driving around, just be going, ee, 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 and it gets quiet. Then it'll go, ee, ee, ee. Like, I don't know if you ever heard, like, when your speedometer goes bad, the cable makes that screeching noise. That's kind of what it sounds like. You're like, what the heck? Or you got a bad power steering pump, it'll make that. That's what it'll do. And it's super random. I can't get it to do it when I'm turning the wheel. So it could be that. And it's one of those things, I hate to say it, it might just have to self clearance. I know that's not exactly the right attitude to have, but at the same time, it's like, I don't really know what else to do. I'm not taking stuff back apart at this point. I want to drive this truck. I want to put some miles into it. I want to make sure this thing's reliable. I would like to drive this truck and take it places because everything works on it, which is that's surprising to me. And the truck's in pretty good shape for its age. I guess I can get out and show you a walk around of the truck while we're at it. So getting out of the truck now. Grab my keys out of it so I don't forget. I'll leave that in there. So here's the truck. 95 Ford Ranger pickup. She's in pretty good shape. It's got a little bit of rust. It does have some dents in it. Unfortunately, the lady backed into something. Truck probably popped out of gear would be my guess. You can see right there by the bumper. It's in pretty rough shape. Somebody ran it. I'm guessing it rolled into something or somebody ran into it. Got a little bit of a dent right there. I put some silicone on the taillight. There was a hole in the taillight, so I just put silicone over it because I figured there's no point. Oh, I did buy a tonneau cover for it. This was not on here when I bought it. I've wanted a tonneau cover for a long time, and I decided, let's just put a tonneau cover on it while we're at it. And it actually still has, amazingly, the factory Ranger mud flaps, because they say Ranger on them still. They're kind of warped from years of use and stuff, but they're actually in pretty good shape. The truck's pretty scratched up. There's a lot of scratches on it just from wear and tear over the years. And you can see the remnants of all the wonderful tape that's all over this truck. Because it used to, this glass pane was busted out on the original window. But it's kind of dirty. I never got a chance to wash it because the weather got cold on me. But like I said, not bad for a 95 Ranger. This thing is, it's really not in bad shape. It's got the wonderful 90s bug guard that every 90s trucks have. That truck has it on there too, ironically. And like I said, the front license plate bracket was ripped off, but it just got bolts going through it now. It isn't a big deal. I don't really care about that much. The one thing I guess I did not fix on this truck, the power mirrors, they don't like to move. Whatever. They're actually set where they need to be for me, so I'm just going to leave it like it is. Anyway, I'll show you. I guess I'll show you the engine bay. You can see that it is in fact a high mileage truck. If we can find the hood latch, there you go. You'll see the wonderful 4-liter engine that it is. You can see that the cap for the overflow for the radiator is missing. It does have air conditioning. It is in fact a 4-liter EFI truck. You can see it's got rust on it. I mean, point in case, look how rusty things are. This is considered a high mile truck. Brand new battery in there. And like I said, you can tell mice have been in it a little bit. All the stuff's been tore down, but that tends to happen just from age as well. But really, it's a pretty darn complete truck. If I close the hood right. Try that again. Let gravity do its thing. Anyway, I was just real happy to show that, and gonna finish this video off. I know some of you guys are getting all antsy about me getting this Ford Ranger, my little Bohemian project done. Unfortunately, weather has turned, winter-ish around this time of year. So it's getting cold out, and things just aren't happening like I wanted them to. I ran into some issues, and we'll go into that here shortly. Anyway, here's the truck right here. I got the motor covered up with a plastic trash bag and stuff just to kind of keep some crap off of it. It's still getting dirty from leaves and rain and stuff like that, but biggest issue right now is the motor is in fact too far backwards, which I wish it wasn't, but it is. Currently right now, the passenger side valve cover is hitting the heater box. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that back there. Might be hard to see. But I guess take my word for it, it's hitting the heater box. And I had already done the massage technique that they told you to do with the heat gun and all this stuff, and it's not where it needs to be. I cannot get the transmission to go far enough forward where it's currently located. We thought when me and my dad installed the transmission, because we had to put the transmission in through the engine bay, because that is the only way they will fit. And I have a 5-speed manual on this truck that's out of an F-150. And it's a bigger transmission, so things do not fit like they would in a Ranger. The only way you can service this transmission is pull it out of the truck through the engine bay. Very inconvenient. You cannot pull it out through the bottom. It's physically not possible. It has a brace back there for your radius rods that hold basically hold your twin I-beam in. So without that, the thing just doesn't work. Anyway, so that's a bit disappointing. That doesn't work. Another issue I ran into, I was trying, this is an F-150 motor that's in here, and I'm using 80s, it's an 88 F-150 accessory drive system on it, and then I had to get a custom groove water pump pulley for it. While in doing so, I had overlooked a few things. The water pump needs to be turning the opposite direction in order to run it this way. So I actually got a water pump for I believe it's an 85 Mercury, or well, Crown Vic or Mercury Grand Marquis, uh, to run the correct rotation. It needs to run clockwise, not counterclockwise like the truck motors do. So I have that water pump. I will have to do some modification to it, unfortunately. There's a mid plate on it that the ports are slightly different on, but thanks to this truck and a lot of trial and error, this truck has a motor out of an 86 F-150 in it. It is not a roller cam engine. Ironically, this truck has the motor that was in this pickup. Small world, but it just happened to work out that way. This motor has been through an engine shop. The guy looked it over, cleaned things up, gave me a clean bill of health, told me to get some different heads for it because he didn't like the way the factory heads were on it. This engine actually was a rebuilt motor when I got that pickup. Unfortunately, it was a very quick and cruddy rebuild at a big facility, and some things were overlooked. There were some tight bearing clearances. He showed me the bearings had been, they were smoked, like it was too tight. And he said, yep. He's like, I went through it, honed everything out, line honed motor. He said, it should be good to go. I didn't find any cracks or anything like that, so you shouldn't be having overheating issues, which was why this motor was pulled. So I think there was an issue with the cylinder heads. The heads that are on it now are actually off of a 5.8 liter F250. I believe it was like a 92 or 93 F250. 351 heads and 302 heads are very, very, very similar. The only differences are the head bolt sizes. The head bolt sizes are actually, I'm trying to think, are actually larger on a 351 than they are on a 302. They do, however, make adapter shims, and they also make like a step bolt if you want to get fancy to make up for that. So what I did is I went the cheap route. I got the shims. They're basically a step shim. They go from a bigger to a smaller bolt, so that way you can shove the heads on there. The heads are identical. If you were to set them side by side on a bench without looking at the head bolt holes, you couldn't tell the difference. They look almost identical. This engine in this truck is stock. The only thing that's been done, it is bored 30 over. That was like that when I got this motor. Nothing has changed there. I put new rings in it, new bearings in it. Didn't even touch the timing chain because it doesn't have that many miles on it. And right now, I said it's kind of at a standstill just because, well, I ran out of ambition and I don't like working when it's cold, not outside. If this truck was in a shop where it was warm, sure, I'd probably progress with it a little bit. But right now, like today's actually not a terrible day to work on something outside, but I am by myself. The transmission, I have to unbolt the cross member. I need to slide the transmission forward, and then I have to have, you almost got to have two people to do it, and I just don't have two people to do it. So that is why this truck's sitting on the back burner. I apologize to all you people that are wanting more updates on things, and me just doing, working, look, I'm installing an alternator, or, look, here's another alternator. Why do you have two alternators on there? Well, actually, that's off of an F-150. I'm not using that one. I'm actually going to use this. This is off the Ranger. The alternator needs to go over here. The Ranger alternator originally was over here, so that'll solve my problem with the other thing was if the alternator is turning the wrong way, it isn't going to charge. Well, in theory, I guess now it shouldn't matter. It's still going to turn the same way. So, they said if the alternator spins backwards, it won't charge, which I think that might be right, but it wouldn't matter because it's still up here. Either way, the belt's still going to be turning this way. So Doesn't matter. But the alternator is already wired up for this truck, so I'm just going to use that alternator because it's already made for this truck. The alternators are extremely similar. I figured why butcher the wiring harness if it already works. So I'm just going to leave it on there, and if it fails, then I know I just need to get another 88 2-liter Ranger alternator. That is what this truck originally had, and it was a 2-liter Ranger alternator. I had a 2.3 in there, and I just used that alternator on the 2.3. It didn't seem to matter. It seems to work. You know, some people claim that's not big enough for this engine. It's good enough. It's not going to hurt anything. It's not a high performance engine. I got an HEI distributor on it. It's a 600 CFM Holley 4-barrel carburetor on it. I went 4-barrel because I wanted to have a little bit more power than a 2-barrel. And I couldn't find. I wanted an aluminum intake, but I could not find a 2-barrel aluminum intake. All I could find were 4-barrel ones. So I figured, whatever, just put a 4-barrel on. It's a little big. I should have got like a 500 some CFM carburetor, but I could not find one, at least not for a good price. 600s were readily available and cheap enough, and I wanted one that had an electric choke because I don't want to deal with the manual choke. And I know some people are saying, why didn't you just go with like a Holley sniper system? Oh, great. Give me some money and I'll do it. I don't have a problem with using that sort of thing. It's just I don't have that kind of money. I do not have thousands of dollars to put into a project. I know you're laughing. Well, you just said you put in $1,500 into this truck. That was not all at one time. It is at least $1,500 to put a sniper system on this, and that is just for one thing. That was for a whole list of parts, you know, and that was, you know, and that truck had been there at the shop for, like I said, end of October until, we'll say, the first week of December. That's how long it sat at the shop for. Finally brought it home, and hopefully it'll work out for me, and I'm just going to keep on driving it until I feel comfortable with it, and then maybe I'll take it on some longer trips. But that's pretty much going to wrap this one up right now, guys. I apologize if audio quality is not amazing. I am trying out a new lapel mic system. I'm also using my old cell phone right now because I actually have an SD card in this one that can do larger video. So you won't have to have like a 5-part video like a lot of my other ones were, because it would cut me off at like 25 minutes. Right now we're almost at an hour. I know it's a long, lengthy, winded video, so I apologize for some of you that get impatient with me and say all I do is talk and I don't do anything. But this is just more, this channel was never meant to be a how-to channel. This was just kind of the daily life of Scott's low-budget projects. These are all low-budget projects. That's a $400 vehicle. That truck was a $4,000 vehicle that blew F-150. However, we had to put a motor and do all this other stuff to it. It's kind of like a basic maintenance channel. It's the best way to put it. I do not get involved with this sort of stuff very often, so this is a big project for me. For all you guys that are looking for like Vice Grip Garage, those sort of like build channels, this is not that channel. I apologize for you if you guys are looking forward to that. I will be showing you the completed video of, you know, when this truck obviously is together. That's not going to happen anytime soon. So don't expect that in next week's video or whenever I make a next video, which mine are not weekly. They're kind of whenever I feel like it. Today was one of those days I decided, let's make a video. I really wanted to show this truck to people. Yes, you can buy a truck for $400. They still exist. Are they easy to find? No. This one fell into my lap. Honestly, most vehicles, like I said, ironically, this truck here was also $400. It did not look like this. It was rough. It had rust on it. It was, let's say, not. This truck's actually in better shape than this truck was originally, believe it or not. And I went all the way to North Platte to get this thing. This one literally showed up at work. I didn't have to go anywhere for it. So factor in $400 plus dragging it home on a car dolly, and it's all kinds of things. The only reason I just really love the first gen Rangers. These are always going to be my favorite Rangers. I like Ranger pickups, and that's just, it's always going to have a spot. Sorry, pounding the microphone. Always have a soft spot in my heart for them. So hopefully it'll be a good truck, you know, in the future. Same goes for this one, and same goes for that one. I want them all to last. I want at least, you know, let's say 10 years. You know, this Ranger here, I'll be happy if it lasts for another, we'll say 4 years, something like that. That would be probably realistic on a vehicle of that high mileage. And most of the time, this truck's really just this truck here is just gonna be seeing back and forth to work. I'll probably take it to Lincoln to go get groceries and stuff. Part of the reason I got a tonneau cover actually, so I can put stuff in the back. That blue F-150 there, I just got groceries yesterday. The freaking plastic bags are blowing out of the back of it on the way home. It's just, you feel terrible doing that. I'm not trying to litter. It just, what am I supposed to do? I can't put it in the cab. I didn't have enough room. Just unfortunate, but that's how it is. Anyway, guys, thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And please understand that this is how I make videos. I apologize if they're too long for you. And if some of you guys this ain't your thing, I guess there's other people to watch, so please go try them out. So anyway, guys, thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next one.